Welcome back to Bless Your Heart. I'm Carlyle.
And I'm Heather.
And tonight we are going to be talking about the education system, partially inspired by my nephew, but we just want to look into, is the modern school system designed for human flourishing, or is it workforce conditioning? And before we get going, a little disclaimer, this is for entertainment purposes only. All the topics that we talk about are just our opinions and things that we've heard on the internet. So bless your heart if you take it too seriously. And let's kick it off with talking about what's going on in our lives.
So this week, Carlisle, we have a hot tip from one of our Bless Your Heart followers, Lena. She sent me down a new rabbit hole I have yet to explore. Have you heard of this conspiracy about SpongeBob and how he could be possibly linked in with Epstein and the little St. James Island? Have you heard of this before? Because I have not.
I've kind of seen a video, but tell us a little bit more about it. I've seen a video and I've heard that Bikini Bottom has a lot to do with Epstein's Island, but what are like the symbolism and what you've seen?
So I did a little bit of research too really fast before the episode, and I wanted to see what everybody else was saying. But apparently on SpongeBob's driver's license, the address that he uses is 124 Street, Bikini Bottom. And when you Google Maps that, it takes you to Little St. James. The other thing that links it is Nickelodeon. You know that orange symbol? It kind of looks like they threw a bunch of paint across the wall or something like that. So they are comparing it to the same shape of Little St. James. And then they start questioning, saying, well, isn't it odd how in the beginning of the episode, they're always like, come on, kids. And then they show this little island by itself in the middle of the water. But SpongeBob lives under the sea in a pineapple. So everybody's questioning, why do they have this pirate that says, come on, kids? And then they show this random little island and then they go under the sea. And lastly, the craziest one of this, or part of this, is that some people are saying that SpongeBob SquarePants was fully designed to entertain the kids that were taken to Little St. James Island.
I have heard that. I did hear that the other day, that would be wild to create your own television show so that these children that you're trafficking are entertained. The internet is a wild place. The Epstein files being released is so wild. I saw a lawyer today. She put out on X this long story, but basically the gist was that like what they're doing right now is psychological warfare. They're info dumping all of these files without context. The most critical parts are all redacted. There's no context. There's no kind of way to do it. So she was saying this is like a trial strategy that is illegal. It's illegal trial strategy because defenses could dump all of this information onto the jury, and it overwhelms them so much that they had to make it illegal, not because of the prosecutor, but for the jury's safety. You have to kind of slow things out for the general population. So what she was saying is it could go one of two ways. Like it consumes you and you like deep dive into it and I've got to know. And because the most important parts are redacted out, you're like trying to figure out what the puzzle is and you kind of get like all consumed in it. Or it's just so much information that you just kind of turn a blind eye to it. And it's so convenient that it came out too with like the dawn of AI and AI videos getting so good. You just really don't know what's real anymore. So it's such convenient timing that if they would have released this 5 years ago, AI wasn't caught up. They released it at the perfect time where you could just like blame things on, well, it's just the internet. Those could be fake. Those could be Photoshop. You really just don't know which way is true. Which makes the education system that we're going to talk about tonight, like who benefits from that, who made it. We need to start questioning things. We need to know, like, why aren't all kids thriving? Let's talk about our Bless Your Heart moment. What was your moment this week?
I've got another RFK Jr., and it goes perfectly with what we're going to talk about today with the school system and the lunches and the food that we feed our kids, that the manufacturers make for our kids today. So RFK Jr. and the FDA announced on April 22nd, 25. I'm just learning about this. I don't watch the news, but they sure did hide this pretty well. And so in April of last year, they started taking steps to eliminate synthetic petroleum dyes that are found in candy, ice cream, snacks, cereal, you name it. And I thought at first this was a full on ban, but it's not. It's very voluntary. So I love how RFK Jr. has kind of kicked this in the manufacturer's sandbox and said, let's see what you do with it. Well, now we'll give you, we would like for you to work with us and have everything changed over to more natural dyes by the end of 2026. But it's not a ban. So it's going to be interesting to see which manufacturers start changing things. How much do they change? Do they just change one or two things? So some of the things that I looked up really fast for this is there's 8 total dyes that are targeted. 2 of them being immediately revoked. They're just like, we're not even going to authorize that. I could not find out what those were, which is very interesting and scary at the same time. The other ones are what we've heard about: red 40, yellow 5, yellow 6, blue 2, green 3, and then red 3. And I started learning about this because I am in the candy business, and I noticed our own company started, researching and figuring out how we're going to change some of our dyes to natural dyes. And then that's when I was like, what is going on? So I found out at work. Just to name a few companies that have already pledged are Nestle, Hershey, and Pepsi. They so far are on board eliminating at least some color additives over the next year or two. 2 companies that have not is Coca-Cola and Kellogg's. And that's your cereal and a lot of soda drinks that a lot of people drink.
Not even just sodas though. They own like Topo Chico. They own
Yeah.
all Coca-Cola owns so much more than just your sodas now.
Yeah, they do. Even like Dasani's their water, I mean,
Not that those have dyes
water.
in it, but, what are they putting in there?
Yeah. So I will say some of these states are kind of taking it in their own hands, which I am on board about. So West Virginia was the first one, but they full on banned it. So they were the first state to initiate a full ban from all food products. They signed into law March 2025. And there are 75 bills aimed at food dyes that were introduced in just 2025 alone. And there were 37 states that have started enacting these laws. Another bless your heart in a good way to RFK Jr. for helping us out, even though he was on the list. Come to
I
find
know,
out.
and it's so crazy. So the food dyes is a real thing, and you always heard about it, but seeing it in real time is something even crazier. Where we were at dinner the other night, and Deacon went from being nice and polite to just being a little
Uh-huh.
more goofy and like kind of acting crazy. And Brittany's like, "Oh, he had that red dye," and sure enough, my mom had given him a red Powerade earlier, and it does something to the brain.
It's
But
crazy. It really is.
my bless your heart moment is going to be we got to continue the Ted saga, my homeless friend, because I thought he was crazy. Obviously, he's mentally has something going on to be living on the street, but he really seems like with it when you talk to him. He seems like a pretty intelligent person that somehow, some way lost his way and has ended up on the street. And that's just like this lifestyle that he's come accustomed to. Maybe like mentally, he can't even cope with his circumstances and he does like to me he doesn't even know how bad his circumstances are, but he was always talking about these women, these country stars that are his women, and I thought he was like making up these stories in his head that he's in a relationship with these chart topping country stars. And so finally when my husband came with me to give him a ride to a hotel, he was talking to him about it, and he was talking about how these women have number one songs. And so John's like, oh yeah, what are their names? And he's like, Megan Maroney and Lainey Wilson, they're my girlfriends,
Yeah.
and I help them out. Like I've helped them out in their career. I've sent them money cards, like gift cards to help
No.
in their career. And then it dawned on us when we came back that he's being scammed on social media by people impersonating Megan Maroney and Lainey Wilson. And he has emailed me a few times and he's copied those emails on there. So I'm not quite sure if I can turn them into Gmail and tell them that these are scammers emails, but I did email those people and be like, shame on you. You're stealing from a homeless man. I
Good
hope
for
you
you.
rest easy tonight,
Good for you.
because to be a scammer, you can't have a soul. Like you have to be a soulless human. But the worst kind of worst people scamming and preying on a homeless man.
You gotta be pretty low. You gotta be pretty scum.
I recently, when I was still in real estate, did a sell of a condo for the woman's like stepmom. She had to sell her home because she had been scammed out of so much money by this person. They had already banned her from going to like Western Unions within 30 minutes of her house, and she was still finding ways to send these people money. And she sent them like all of her money. She had to sell her home because she could not afford to live there anymore. These people are despicable and sick, and this is exactly why I want to talk about this, because we need to be looking at these systems. These systems are put into place to protect us, but they're not. They're put into place to help and take advantage of us, and for in a capitalistic society, certain people to be able to really flourish from this, which is why I want to talk about the education system, because it's crazy. We have been sold a bill that isn't true.
Right. I mean, and we have learned so much for this podcast, Carlisle. You start to wonder, is school actually jail for kids? I mean, just with fluorescent lighting? I
I
mean,
know, like, raise your hand if you had to go to school for 7 hours and sit still and memorize a bunch of stuff, and then you forgot it, like, 3 days later. I am so good at taking tests. I have so many certifications because it's really easy to memorize a bunch of stuff for me for a test. Don't remember any of it. I have learned and forgotten more things than I care to admit.
same. I remember just staring at those books and reading the same line over and over again, and it just would not sink in for me. So, what was school actually built for? Let's get into it.
I think we should talk about a bit of the history first, because I thought this was so interesting. So, the school system was modeled based on 18th century Prussia. They had come up with a system to make good military soldiers. So they were having a really bad time in war. They needed a bunch of people that were going to come in, be good soldiers, and not question anything. So they created this whole system of how to create basically factory workers, standardized people, your cog in the system that's not going to rise up. Then JD Rockefeller found out about that, and he was like, he paired up with, I believe, Carnegie and maybe Henry Ford. I'm pretty sure those are the three that had a lot of say into the school system, and they dumped in like I think $200 million in 1903, which is crazy, to create this school system. But the idea wasn't to create free thinkers, it was to create good workers. And that has been widely quoted from
Mhm.
Rockefeller since he apparently said it back in the day. At 1902, Rockefeller funded committees to help shape the public education. He was, if we're building a modern industrial economy in 1900, what traits would we want in our workforce and what traits would you not want? So that is a question to think about in today's society. We stand in line, follow in a straight line, be quiet, raise your hand, don't speak unless spoken to, learn to be an individual contributor. All of
Mhm.
your work is individualized. You have very little time to be creative and use that as an outlet. Everything is standardized from your testing to the metrics. There is no room for a free thinker, and free thinkers are like smashed and extinguished. So tonight I would just like really want to dive into what we can do about it.
And it's interesting you were talking about Rockefeller. So there's also a New York teacher of the year who wrote Dumbing Us Down. And his argument was that the school was purposely designed to suppress curiosity, just like you were saying, creativity and independent thinking, which is so sad. Heaven forbid we we have children that can think freely and independently and be creative.
I
But
know he said to keep the population manageable. Like that is the whole goal of school, to keep the population manageable.
so this is exactly why they don't want pattern recognition thinkers in corporate America.
I know I suffered so hard in corporate America. Anywhere I go, I feel like I get in trouble because I can spot the operations, like I can spot where they need to be changed and the holes in the systems and things like that. And people don't like that. People do not like questioning. When I was in yachting, I suffered so hard because it's a top down system. So it's like
Oh,
the captain, the first mate reports to the captain. You all report to your department heads, and there's no going around that. And it's not a questioning system. It's a because I said so.
really? Yeah, I don't know how well I would do with that either.
It's so crazy. So we learn all of these things in school though. The bells schools are there to train us. We have
Yep.
lunch breaks. It's literally a one for one if you were going to be a factory worker. How to be a good
Yep.
factory worker, but not to excel into the leadership roles. And then I learned about in England how boarding schools were started. And the theory is that boarding schools were started to separate the youth from the elite, like their elite families. So you send all these elite youth to this program where they are initiated in to the institution matters more than the family. Like, because they're stripped away of their family, they're learned and they're groomed to be this whole generation of workers that value the institution over the family. So that's why people are so all about their jobs. It is crazy to me how we live in a society where
Yeah.
people only care about what you do for a living. But like that's not who you are because when we're at work, we're all playing a part.
But it's true though, Carl. It even sunk into me. Like I remember when I got let go of my first job, and I was so upset because I was like, "Who am I now?" Like that was my purpose in life. I thought until I was let go, and then I had to learn that life is so much more than just a job, and you are so much more than just a job. And yes, I was a perfect example of that. So let's talk about the buildings and the classrooms. So, most of these schools that at least I've seen and the school that I went to, so, I'll refer to a lot of my little, PD Academy in Mullins, Marion, excuse me. I went there from 3rd grade to 12th grade, but you can go there from kindergarten to 12th grade, and it's very small classrooms. It's a Christian school, but our hallways were cinder block, green, nothing on the wall. Nothing inspirational, nothing creative at all. And my brother, he started painting murals on in the schools. And what he would do is he would get the kids in 5th grade, 6th grade, whatever grade wanted to do this program. They would get grants and they would pay my brother to come in here and he would teach these kids how to paint history of South Carolina on the walls in the school. And it's so much more beautiful than just like a bare cement block painted wall. And it's interesting how that kind of died off after COVID. I don't know if it was because they were not getting as many grants, because more people are homeschooling now. Who knows? You also the windows. Did your my classrooms, we only had one window in every classroom, and I remember the teacher always sat in front of that window, and that was it.
Yeah, so it's crazy. I went to basically every time I was going to a school, they were building a new school. So it was always like I got to see the old and the new. The old school style had multiple buildings. It encouraged outdoor courtyards. There were no windows inside of the classroom, which were weird. The windows were on the hallways. The lure is that my school's plans got switched with a school in Florida, and we got like a school that was designed for like warmer weather, and I have no idea, but our classrooms did not have windows. Then they built the new high school and it is like a prison. It's a one straight line with rooms all the way down each
Uh,
side of it with no character, gray, red, and white. We literally used to call it the jail. Like we're going to the jail. There was one way in and one way out. There were all these doors, but you couldn't use them
the hell?
because of security. School shootings and stuff, they kept every door in the school locked except for
Uh,
the main office door, which is also like a psyop in itself. You cannot like come and go freely. Everything is very controlled in schools now. It's even like you have to go to school. You can't even choose to not send your kid to school. You will go to jail as a parent
yep,
if your kid does not go to school.
yep, they will come knocking on your door if they don't show up for a couple of days wondering where they are. It's so, oh my god. I mean, and they use it as we're concerned. I'm very sure there are cases where they should probably check on things, but I don't know the percentage. But let's talk about, so we had desk and rows like you were saying earlier. We had recesses. I live across the street from a school and you can hear those kids squealing, yelling. I can hear it from across the street as soon as recess hits. I mean, those poor kids, they only get what, 30 minutes of running around when they need hours in a day to get that energy out.
Even President Barack Obama said kids need at least 60 minutes of exercise. So what in the world? I watched a video today on social media that was talking about neuroscientists say that kids can only learn in like 20-minute windows and that they should be moving and doing something during those while they're learning. So then
Mhm.
the school system came in and said, nah, we're going to give kids like 2 hour standardized testing. They're going to get one bathroom break during this. And this is going to tell us where they stand in the entire country and their entire future and all of this stuff. And then you come to find out that the standardized testing system is just one big corporation. There's
Yeah.
two main testing companies, and they make so much money off of selling our data. It's not even they're just making money off of the tests. They're making money off of selling your children's data. They brought the
Mhm.
Chromebooks into the classrooms. They're
Yep,
also selling off that data. You
yep.
think like after COVID, all of these things got ushered into the classroom so you can virtual e-learn. Yeah, it seems like it can, but what are they doing with all this data?
Yeah, 'cause the computers are owned by the school, and like you said, all the data, who owns that? I mean, it goes to a cloud somewhere, it's not like it just disappears. It's kinda spooky if
So
a parent's done already looked into it. If a parent has already looked into it, we would love to hear from you about that, if you found out where that data goes.
yeah, I'm sure they have no idea. They'll probably say the school district. Well, what does the school district do with it? It's
Mhm.
even like the program, the GATE program, which is run from it's not even through the school board. It's its own program where they come in and they take the gifted and talented classes, which they find from the standardized testing. If you score
Mhm.
like 95% higher in certain categories or you score above your grade level, they'll come in a couple days a week and you go to a different classroom, a small group. It's usually like 10 or so students, and you do like word teasers. You learn to like speed read upside down. They'll do questions like a who done it situation, like who robbed the bank, and they'll give you all these scenarios. A lot of like statistics type of thinking. And then we always had these like weird hearing tests where they would ask you to raise your hand, which like leads one to
Yeah.
why we needed hearing tests multiple times in elementary school as healthy children. So, what were they really testing for? I saw one theory that said that they were testing to see if you could hear like frequencies that other people couldn't hear. So, like, you wouldn't even know that you're like raising your hand for something that other people can't hear. But that is like, that's just like one of the theories. The whole theories behind the GATE program. Most people say it's for just to give extra enrichment to students. But really, it's being run to find out who are the like free thinkers, who might have, dare I say, psychic abilities, who might have like too good of intuition. And I don't know if you're followed your whole life, but I was part of this
Ooh.
thing, Duke Tip, which is a talent program. My mom says
Mhm.
she doesn't remember it, but I've definitely seen a certificate from it. So
Yeah.
why they needed to gather all these students to see who was like talented and what kind of programs and where they got the data on us from the standardized testing. I have a theory that social media, they're putting out all of these, it's like trending right now, the GATE program, and it'll be like, were you a GATE student? What do you remember from the program? So I think it's
True.
the government keeping tabs on where all these GATE kids
Oh
are,
my
what they're
god,
into in
yes.
life, and like
I
who they
never
need
thought
to
about that.
get into more.
Yep, I never thought about that because 'cause you're right, all you have to do is go in the comments. It's like
Yeah.
the Project Pogo, like we're gonna talk about in another episode where they tag an ID, track an ID.
Yeah,
That's kinda cool.
the modern school system is like the first psyop. Teach you to be a good worker, then they're going to
Yeah,
test you to find out who stands out. So it's like really just interesting because all of the gifted students after elementary and middle, they don't really help you out anymore. They kind of just like send you on your way and set you out to fail. I feel like the modern school system, they say that kids with like disabilities are very underserved, but so are intelligent kids. Intelligent kids are told like you're going to succeed. You have to be perfect. You got to get straight A's. You're the
yeah,
valedictorian. Like you got to be the top, top, top. Number one, can't get a question wrong, can't do anything wrong. So it really does you a disservice for the rest of your life because I have so many friends that are stuck in this perfectionist mode. And I know that it was taught to them
yeah.
in school.
Yeah, and it kinda makes the parent, criticize the child if they get a C, when actually that child that was a C student might be killing it in the everyday world and probably the wealthiest one versus the kid that was a straight A. I mean, you just never know. You never know because the standardized testing, like, I sucked at those standardized testing. I don't know what it was, but my brain would not focus on those questions. It just would not. Like, I struggled with SAT and stuff. Like, I hated it. And, I was watching that video you sent me about Finland, how they all of them were saying, "You guys have got to stop standardized testing in America." I mean, I had no idea how much we had standardized testing. But talking about the GATE program, my husband also remembers that. And I asked him, he said he remembers it K through 8th grade. Around there, it kind of fell off. And he said he remembers that pink drink that a lot of people talk about online, but he remembered taking it like if his stomach hurt. So I don't know if that's something else, but he also remembers the questions being more like critical thinking scenarios, like what you were saying, not like is 2 plus 2 4 kind of thing. So I definitely think they were trying to figure out who had the psychic abilities or who was just a little bit, I don't know, more blessed than some of the rest of us. And I honestly think, in my opinion, that people that are ADHD and autistic, I think autistic kids especially, I think they have the gift. They're able to talk telepathic. What was that?
The
What was that?
telepathy tapes.
The telepathy takes. I mean, that's a perfect example right there. And I think like the people that are ADHD, like you and my husband, I mean, you guys can multitask. I mean, I can multitask, but you guys are on a whole nother level and you're efficient. And if everybody was like that, could you imagine how much stuff we would get done? And it's like they want to tell you it's bad that you're ADHD or that you have so much energy you can't sit still or that you can't focus or that you're autistic. It's like, what? It's completely backwards. And they've been doing it for so long. So let's go into who's been writing all of the books and textbooks and things.
I know, to talk about the history of school, then to talk about history in general, right? I thought it was just so bad that Ghislaine Maxwell's father, Robert Maxwell, was part of McGraw-Hill, who are the publishers of our textbooks. But
Yeah.
then I found out that there are committees in California and Texas that largely determine for the entire country what goes into textbooks. And, it's just common knowledge you're going to make your country look better. You're gonna teach nationalism, you're gonna teach a sanitized version of anything bad that you've done, and you're really going to tell the story of however you want because who is the victor, they get to tell the story.
Yeah. What was it? Who wins the war publishes the books was one of
Yes.
the quotes we saw. Yeah, it's crazy how much, talk about these textbooks really fast. Do you know how much, I wonder how much money we spent paying for textbooks? I mean, just in college alone. And then you never even looked at them again. But, I look at the kids. I was thinking about our podcast today and I saw the kids, walking home off the school bus and stuff. Their book bags are as big as they are. There are so many heavy books in there that like their backs are broken or they're like falling back. And to think how many of those books, how much information in those books are lies or not all lies, but manipulated in certain ways to where they create a factory worker. You do as you're told. You clock in when you're supposed to. You can't make all this extra money. You can't, think outside the box. Heaven forbid.
I know they even talk about like the public school system is dead with AI now because like you can literally look up everything and kids are just going to learn to use AI. Sophie, my stepdaughter in college, was taking for her computer science class an Excel class. Well, they just came out with Gemini for Excel, where literally AI can put in any function. You don't need to know the functionality of Excel anymore. You tell Excel what you want, and it puts it in the cell for you. So it's like she took this whole Excel class for what purpose? All of these students should be learning to master AI because AI long as it doesn't take over the world, is always going to need a babysitter. So the only way you're gonna get ahead in life is now to learn to be the babysitter of AI or to learn trades again, right? Like,
Yeah.
trades are gonna come back. The things that
Yep.
AI can't do, plumbing,
Electric.
carpentry,
Yep.
different,
Electric
like,
work.
building things,
Yep.
that like, being an
Okay.
electrician, those kind of things are gonna come back because those jobs AI can't do. So I saw this guy was talking about how our school system is dead and you only have 2 options, put your kid into, like, a forestry farm, homeschool type of situation,
Mhm.
or find a very small private school with, like, a really good curriculum because they have taken any kind of life skill out of school, and what they're teaching now is obsolete with AI. You don't need to learn any of this stuff anymore because you can look up everything.
Everything, and it
Enlightens
writes it
you.
for you.
You know, and, like, Common Core, this weird curriculum that I heard all of my friends talking about the past couple years, apparently South Carolina has already dropped it, but Common Core was, like, this weird way of teaching math, and it was, like, to standardize math across the country, but really the problem wasn't that it wasn't the Common Core, it was the fact that they were able, without the parents, without the teachers, to just roll this out in schools and tell you, like, "This is what's going to be done, and this is how you're gonna learn." Didn't matter that everybody was like, "This is crazy," and all the teachers had to retrain, and all the parents had to learn how to teach their kid this specific way of problem solving. Like, you couldn't just get to it your way. You have to show that you can get to it that specific way. So it's really weird, and that was done by Bill Gates. Like, what does now Bill Gates, he went from being vaccine savior, now he's the education savior, he's buying up all the farmland, he's the
Right.
Monsanto savior, like, what is happening? Bill
Yep.
Gates Bill Gates started a computer company, he's an IT guy, so I don't know when he became a scientist or an educator
Or a
or a
doctor.
farmer.
Apparently, his wife was on this his wife, basically said that he picked Epstein over her.
I saw that. I saw that, and then after Epstein died, there was, like, a picture of Bill Gates with, like, the biggest smile on his face the next day, because good old Jeffrey didn't have the blackmail on him anymore.
Yeah, I wonder what he's got on him. I really wonder.
Yeah,
I
like,
really
in
wonder.
that video about Bill Gates, it was talking about how an insider that worked for them heard Bill and Melinda Gates arguing over Jeffrey Epstein, like, many times, which is,
And how
like,
many times he went to the
what did
island.
what did Jeffrey have on Bill that he literally had to be like, "Sorry, wife," which brings us oh gosh.
Yeah.
So Bill Gates is interested in your school children, which should terrify you. And let's talk about homeschooling. I know not everyone has this option. I understand that parents work and your kids need to be at school. You don't have a way to homeschool them 2 days a week or to pay for them to go to a specialized school. I totally get that. So this doesn't pertain to everyone, but if you can homeschool your kid, if you can look into these alternate schools like forestry, farmer schools, you should.
He looked up some stats to kind of compare before COVID and today, and it is insane. I had no idea. First off, I want to give a shout out to South Carolina. We apparently have shown the strongest growth between the year 2024 and 2025. We have increased more kids going to homeschool from public school has increased 21.5% in a year. So apparently we're leading like the charge on moving our kids from public schools to homeschooling. But which is pretty interesting that here we are wanting to talk about it and we didn't even know that at first. If you want to do the whole entire United States, if you looked at 2019, roughly 3.4% of the US school age children were going to homeschool. So that's about 2.5 million students from K to 12. So that kind of gives you a borderline, right? 3.4%. By 2025, that number had risen so dramatically that some estimates, it depends on which website you look at. It's insane. Even Claude I is like, it depends on which website I look at. The numbers are a little skewed, but we can say between 6 and 11% it grew post COVID. So basically, I think, COVID kind of forced some of these families that were not even thinking about homeschooling their kids to actually do it. And I don't think many of them went back once that happened. So it basically doubled the amount of kids that are now going homeschooling from public school between 2019 and 2025, basically doubled. It is 5 to 6 million kids. Crazy. And then I started all of a sudden finding when I was doing research, these moms are making it a thing, which I think is fantastic. They're basically like hoorahing each other saying, I did that last year, or I did that 2 years ago, or I just did that last month, or I just, it's amazing. And they were even talking to each other about the different curriculums that they use. I didn't know anything about this either. There's one called Harbor and Sprout, and these were designed by a mom who was homeschooling her, 7 or 8 other kids. And she was a second generation homeschool mom. And she had just a BS degree in public health. But she was just like, screw it. I'm going to help these kids and teach them our own. And this other one, which was really cool, was Singapore. So Singapore Dynamics was another one some people recommended, and it's mostly math. And it was designed by a couple that moved from Singapore to America and noticed in 1998 that our math, I guess our options of how we taught it were lacking. And so they wanted to just, have a better option. And this thing's home for me because my stepdad lived in Singapore for of several years, international banking, and he tells me stories all the time, like how clean it is there, like the school systems are fantastic. There's no drugs or anything like that because they'll basically they don't mess around. And then the Finland we were talking about earlier, it's illegal to charge for kids to go to school over there. I didn't know that. And they basically teach their kids to be, like you were saying, free thinkers, creative, and be happy. That hit me, and I almost got upset about it. It's like the fact that these kids are miserable all day. They're not even happy kids like they're supposed to be,
I know. We gotta talk about that, leads us to my nephew's story, but first, I thought it was super interesting in that video about Finland is they said the poor kids and the rich kids all go to school together because they can't have for-profit schools, so there's really hardly any private schools in the entire country, so the rich kids' parents have to pour into the regular schools, so they the kid everyone benefits from all of the kids going to school together, and then they said it makes them more compassionate later on in the future because those kids that may be less fortunate that become their workers, even when they're the bosses, they have more
Mhm.
empathy and compassion because they've gone to school with people of all walks of life. I think about that with my stepdaughter all the time. She was very fortunate to go to a small private school, but she's never gone to school with children that didn't have money. Going to a public school, I went to school with children of poverty level. So I by no means grew up rich. I'm middle class, but I saw the dynamics of what it's like. I get putting everyone together like that. I love that they don't
Mhm.
have private schools and everybody from the bottom to the top has to go to school together. I think that's great. That builds your community. That is how you really pull each other up and each other out. But we have so much more to worry about here because the kids in Finland, they get activity, they get to think about things. The kids in China, they're in kindergarten helping cook lunch, which is wild.
Really?
Their whole school is basically learning to clean up, learning to do chores, learning to be productive members of society, not can you do calculus type things, right? I'm
So,
sure they
yeah,
do that too, but
you're never
Deacon,
gonna
my
eat that,
nephew,
huh?
who is a wonderful kid outside of school, so joyous. Every day he was going to school. The teachers were calling. They were saying, you got to come get him. He's being disruptive. He's taking his aggression out on the kids in the playground. He at one point was really having almost panic attacks at school. And I was like, this is crazy. I have taken this kid on weekend trips, no problem. And I am not a parent. I am not a parent, I am not equipped with being a parent, and I have no problem. So the fact that a school, has to call and also, why are they calling her every day? You're the school, do your job, take care of the kid. But they wouldn't let him stand up, they wouldn't let him have any kind of autonomy, and even you told me that your husband, when
Oh, yeah.
he was to help him learn in class back in the day.
Yeah, so he basically, could not sit still, and he would get his work done so much faster, so then he was just bored, and so he started getting in trouble, and his mom finally went to the teacher and just said, "He's bored. You've got to give him something else to do while you teach the rest of these kids." So they actually made, a little section in the back of the room where he can, build things and play with things because obviously he's a general contractor, so it worked out perfect. But yeah, he constantly has to be moving, doing something. He can't just sit.
And now educators, I'm sure their hands are tied, but they can't do this. Everything is so strict and standardized that it is made for one type of person, and there are
Yeah,
so many like, our neurodivergence itself goes from such an array of spectrum, so for anyone to say that even, like, for a normal person, that's not the way there's, like, 20
mhm,
different ways that you can learn. You know, some people learn with their hands, some people learn with their eyes, some people learn with their ears. There's different ways, and we do not
yeah,
cater society to that, so Deacon was, like, getting in trouble every day. His mom was like, "I don't understand, give him some extra work, give him something
yeah.
to do." But he was getting, 30 minutes at recess. During the summer, that kid runs from sunrise to sundown. So you're telling me that you go from that to 30 minutes of exercise in a 7-hour
Right.
span? Like, it just doesn't work. No creativity. Everything is very like, "Here's the task, do it, done." Thankfully, I am so proud of my brother and sister-in-law. They pulled Deacon out of there. They put him into like a forestry farm school where he goes 3 days a week. Monday and Friday, he homeschools. He has a tutor. And the tutor is awesome because she has him like riding the Peloton while learning. And he's already in like, he's already in third grade in some of his classes because of that. He's a second grader, but he's already doing third grade work at
Okay.
homeschool on Monday and Friday. Then he goes to school a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, like 9 to 2:30. The first 30 minutes, they have circle time. All of the kids, I think it goes up to 12 years old. All of the kids up to 12 years old, they all meet up, have circle time. Then they all go off into like their individualized classrooms. They do like 45 minutes of school. Usually it's outside if it's warm enough. And then they have like 45 minutes of structured play. So it'll be like learning to take care of the farm animals or something like that. But they are outside learning, getting to be creative. Deacon came home and was like, "Mom, I found a dinosaur." And him and his friend had literally like excavated a squirrel corpse and like went up to the teacher like, "Oh my gosh, this is so cool." In public school, he would have been like expelled for that.
Yeah, you're right. You're
Like, he would
right.
have gotten in so much trouble, but there they're, like, teaching them like, they're raising their own chickens. They're learning to grow vegetables that they will eat. It's, like, amazing. They're learning life skills, and he is so polite and well-mannered, and just overall, I can just see he's already a better member of society in this short period of time, and it breaks my heart that all kids don't have access to this. So this is
Yeah,
why we need parents to get involved in your schools, and even if we can't completely change the public school system, maybe we can bring back some classes that are like home ec and give people creativity back. And you can't save everybody from the public school system. So we really need to like have parents getting loud to drastically
yeah.
change things so that everyone has the chance to
I mean,
do well.
2 recesses, at least. What's wrong with 1 recess in the morning and 1 recess in the afternoon? I mean, I remember we had, like, a study period, as we got older, but, I mean, turn that into something that, they could run around and stuff. Because 'Cause didn't you say, like, a lot you even were shocked when you went to eat lunch with him or something one day? Weren't didn't you say something like something
Yes,
happened?
I was like, maybe I'm crazy, but I went to eat lunch with my nephew on his first week of school for my dad's birthday. And we
Yeah.
sat, first off, we had to sit like in a room by ourselves, which I thought was sad. I wanted to sit at the table with everybody, like all the kids.
Hang out with you.
Yeah, I wanna be with all the kids. But then I realized that it was eerily quiet, and I couldn't figure it out at first, and then all of a sudden I heard, like, the classical music tuned in, and I realized that I asked my nephew about it and realized that they have to do silent lunch, and then they play
What?
classical music, so they can't even talk at lunch. I get that they have to eat. I kinda get it, but at the same time, that is really messed up, especially when that's one of their only opportunities to be away from their desk.
Talk
You
to each
know, all my friends though, in the past 5 years, like pre-COVID, pre-2020, no
Mhm.
one was talking about this. Everyone was sending their kid to public school. Like, it wasn't even a
Yeah,
question. And since
yeah,
then, I'd say a vast majority, are leaning that way. Some have already gone that way. Some have younger kids and plan to go that way. So not everybody. Some kids are still in public school. I would say most of those, their parents just don't really have the opportunity to be able to, like, divert their day that you kinda have to do if you have a co-op life.
yeah.
But let's go back while we're talking about schools, let's talk about the school lunch and stuff because Deacon wanted to eat school every day, and my sister-in-law was like, "No, we're packing your lunch." I looked into a little bit of the history of the lunch system, and it was put in place to get rid of excess commodity food that they couldn't sell, which should be so disturbing. The stuff that they could not sell is what they sent to your cafeteria.
After World War II. I mean, I had no idea either. I learned this with you. It's crazy. So they were basically just the lunches at the schools were basically keeping the industrial farming going because so many people were sent, for World War II and stuff. It's just crazy. And they were just reheating the same old crap. I mean, you've got kids today showing videos of milk coming, like chocolate milk coming out. It's not liquid. I'll say that. It's disgusting. And parents starting to look into it. Moms tested 43 school lunches at 8 different locations and found 93% of them had round, 100% of them had heavy metal. And then some of them had even veterinarian drugs and hormonal drugs. I mean, what the? Thank God that they did this. But I mean, these chemicals are leading to kids having ADHD, hormone disruption, early puberty, even. I mean, obesity, di diabetes. I mean, it's kinda sad. I mean, you even look at, like, the cereal in Europe. They don't have those chemicals in them like ours do. So it's kinda spooky what they're serving.
Well, again, everything is a corporation. There's 3 main suppliers to schools. There's Sodexo, there's Aramac, and there's, Chartwells. They are a corporation. They get to decide what's going into your food. It's not even like on a school like a school district to school district basis. It's like it literally what is served to your child is decided from a corporation that does not care about the well-being of your children. There are now studies saying that ADHD is developed I think it's before the age of 8, and it is a metabolic dysfunction. So a lot of picky eater children are going to be doomed for this because their parents give
Mm,
them what's easiest to eat, but also if you're just eating a lot of processed foods. They say though that like you can if your kid is showing signs of ADHD, you can curb it if you catch it early enough and you change their diet. There's a thing called grain brain. You should look into it if you don't know about it. It's if you have ADHD or neurodivergence, you should not eat any gluten. Like I should not be eating gluten. The inflammation on my brain, my ADHD is like tenfold worse when I'm eating a bad diet. When I'm
really?
eating a really clean diet, I'm focused, I'm clear. My kind of like bad cycles aren't as bad, if that
Mhm.
makes sense. It's like the things that are like real that I really struggle with kind of disappear. And then when
Yeah,
ChatGPT told me that if I moved to Europe, like 85 to 90% of my ADHD and like PMDD and the different things like autoimmune order disorders that I suffer with would like
yeah.
vanish, which is so
That's
annoying.
crazy.
Again, starts at your childhood in your most developmental years instead of pushing in whole foods, protein, veggies, everything that your kid gets at school is processed junk.
Yeah. I mean, because nobody's making lunches at these schools anymore. I mean, it's coming in from the corporations already pre-made. I mean, all they're doing is throwing them in one of the 10 microwaves or now air fryers. I mean, we didn't have air fryers when I was in school, but we literally had like 5 different microwaves to, to heat up your hot pocket because we had a smaller and schools are also doing collaborations with like McDonald's. It's McDonald's Monday, Taco Tuesday, Taco Bell Tuesday, pizza whatever day. I mean, we did have a pizza day too, when I went to school, but it's kind of crazy that they're just like serving the same things that aren't really healthy for them in school, so they're not really getting the nutrition that they need at that age. I mean, when I was in school, like, we got to sit outside I mean, if it was a nice day, like, you could go sit outside if you wanted to. You didn't have to sit in the cabin. I mean, obviously, during certain as we got older too, but, I mean, it was either sodas in the vendor machine or unhealthy microwave thing, soda drink. Let's see, what else did we find? Oh, yeah, Michelle Obama tried to make it healthy, but it kinda you gotta educate people so it didn't really turn as good as she hoped. They ended up wasting a lot of money, throwing a lot of that food out.
Well, yeah, they cited it the program ended because they cited it as waste, but they never taught the children how to eat healthy food or the healthy food options. Like they weren't pressed upon them. So it's like it's hard to make kids eat healthy, yes, but like you can get kids to eat healthy, and they're having silent lunch because they don't want disruptive kids, right? But then they're feeding them a high carb lunch where they're going to have a blood sugar crash at like right towards the end of the day, and then the kids are going to get disruptive. So you're trying to combat overactivity with a silent lunch to make sure they eat, but then you're pumping them full of food that's going to make them disruptive and get in trouble later. So
Yeah.
it's like this endless cycle of like I just remember I felt like I was like always in trouble. So I really learned to be like a good little soldier like everyone else. That is where I learned ADHD masking. Like
Mm.
pretend to be who they want you to be. Is how I always saw it,
Yeah.
like, you and I never really, like, stood out that much because I was able to make good grades. I am not, like, socially awkward, so I didn't have, like, the social like, I didn't miss social cues. I was able to see what, like, a
Mhm.
quote, unquote, "normal person" acted like and how they behaved and kinda just, like, do the same thing and be a chameleon and fit
Yeah.
into society, but the whole school thing goes even further when you think about it is the first step into initiating a society
Yeah.
into the debt trap. We go to
Oh,
school
yeah.
to upper education at, the age of 18, and we're asked if we're not fortunate enough to have parents that will pay for our education, they ask you to take out absurd amount of money at a premium that you'll pay later on. Like, at that
Mhm.
time, you have no concept of money because you weren't taught any money classes in school. You weren't taught a single money class in school, but yet they allow you to take, like, thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars out in debt in your name for an education that probably isn't gonna pay you that, but they sure did tell us that if you got a degree that you would be paid that.
And with that debt, I mean, all these kids that have degrees that they never even used, I mean, it's just a waste of money and just time when you could be not in debt and making at least 50 grand or no, I wouldn't say right at that age, probably what, well, 35 to 45,000 maybe. It's amazing because school, I don't think it's really as expensive as they charge, it's like a wedding, right? If you add a wedding to it, like 30% more added to how much it costs. Like, I just don't think there's no way that school costs as much as they charge kids. I mean, I went to Prince Marion at the time. It was like one of the cheapest schools in South Carolina. And I left there with money in my pocket. I mean, because it wasn't that much to go there. I mean, even though I could have stayed at home, I didn't. But I mean, most of my money was going to living off campus and eating because I didn't want to stay on campus after my freshman year, sophomore year. Because who wants to do that? But you're
I know,
right.
it's so crazy. Student loan debt exceeds $1.7 trillion. Like, we are not setting people up to succeed. And sure, I agree that if you take the money out, you got to pay the consequences, you got to pay it back. But there is no kind of education that goes into like you're just kind of told it'll be easy to pay it back. There's
Yeah.
really nothing that goes into how this is going to follow you around for a long time in your life. And it's like I took out a loan to do my master's because my parents were like, I don't think you should do that degree. And I agree with them now because I have not used my real estate development degree. But they were like, if you're going to do this, you can take out a loan. So I took out a loan. First semester, I realized the program wasn't really for me, but the program was like 3 semesters long and I was already like 20 grand into it. Right. So I was like, well, I guess I'm going to finish it now. So literally, I am a prime example of having a degree that you don't use. But I always say that everything happens for a reason.
So
Uh, it also
it does.
contributed to my life falling off the rails, but it got me to where I'm at today. So I think the whole thing is I tell Sophie, my stepdaughter, who's at Clemson University, I don't really think it's about the education. I think it's about like networking, meeting people, getting
Yeah.
internships, getting
Yeah.
experience, because we really are moving into a society of it's not what you know, it's who you know, because everybody knows everything with AI now. So it really is like who you know, not what you know, got to keep that going. It's just really crazy when you all look at education is the first psyop of your life and it's probably at the most critical time in your life too.
Yep.
So what are
Because
some
when
of your
you're
takeaways from this?
yeah. Yeah, because when you're 7 and 8, that's when you're developed and you are whatever society has molded you to be, that's when you start acting like the robot we're supposed to. But yeah, let's pull it all together. So we basically learned that or we still have lots of questions, right? Because that's part of what our podcast is just questioning everything. Is the school system designed to help our kids or hurt our kids? Is the food system designed to keep us healthy or unhealthy? Are the people behind writing our kids' textbooks writing things that are true or writing a story? I don't know. And lastly, where's our kids' data going between Life Touch, pictures from Epstein, connection to where our kids' information's? I mean, do those laptops have cameras on them? Are these cameras working when those kids aren't using the laptop? I don't know. I mean, you never know. Is that being put in a cloud somewhere? I mean, I'm kind of glad I'm not a parent, to be honest with you. There's a lot out there that we all have to watch out for, but it's just being more knowledgeable, right? Knowledge is power. And if you didn't know these things, we didn't know a lot of this stuff before this podcast. Like we learned a lot about homeschooling, the stuff that's in the food that they serve in the kids' lunches, who's actually the companies behind giving these kids what about
I think my biggest takeaway from all of this is I never really understood that like I was part of a system that wasn't designed to help me flourish, that I was part of a system that actually was meant to like hold me back. And honestly, it did. My whole
yeah,
life I felt like this overachiever, but kind of a weirdo. And I didn't quite fit into like the normal structure of society, but I did really well. So I was told like, you're going to do great things. And then you kind of get out in the real world and you've done all these tests and you've taken the test and you've done well and you're like, okay, now what? I can take a test. What does that mean? And so you spend all this like time in these cycles of trying to be perfect and trying to figure out like why you aren't like everyone else and like the system. But I think if we just like teach our children that it's okay that we all learn in different ways. I'm
yeah,
not a mother, I'm a stepmother, but like I'm on the outside. I see all of my friends' kids and I'm able to observe the patterns and hear the conversations. And I actually think that we're in a better place to kind of help people because we aren't biased in any way, shape, or form. We literally just hear the stories that people are telling us about their experience. And
yeah,
parents are all coming together. They're starting to talk about like things aren't adding up. Our parents, it's not like they didn't question the system, but they also didn't know, like, they didn't know to question the system, right?
right,
Like, we can be a part of helping schools change and helping your kids if they can't be pulled out and put into a co-op or a hybrid school, help make your school better. Find ways to get on your school board and get more recess time, get more outdoor curriculum, get more creative group projects. Like, we
yeah,
need I think we're all just taught to be individual thinkers, and that's where we fail a lot of times. Like, we think we need to be like one person who does it all. Well, really, we should be like coming together as a community and finding out who has what strength and building on that as a team.
mhm,
But we aren't, I very rarely had team projects, maybe in college, but
yeah, college,
not
yeah,
much in the rest of my schooling. We're taught to be individual contributors, and we're not. We're a collaborative
mhm,
society. It takes a village. That quote
it
is
does,
so true. It takes a
it
village. To
does,
all the moms out there, you're doing a great job. It takes a village, and we've gotten away from that.
mhm,
Away from being able to lean on each other and help each other and, step up and give rides where needed. It's everybody has to be everything to everyone, and I don't like that. I don't like that.
yeah,
I really don't like that people are making so much money off of public school. Like, you're like, "Oh, it's public school." People aren't making
yes,
money. People are making money on the test. People are making money on the lunch.
I
There
had
are
no idea.
things that people are making money on, and people should not be able to profit off our children.
Exactly. Well, and just the psychological mind. I mean, I would always feel so bad if I didn't get an A or a B, or if damn I got a C. I was so scared I was going to get in trouble. And I'm sure there are parents that are very strict with their kids. I mean, I grew up with a lot of smart kids, and a lot of them had straight A's, and heaven forbid they made a freaking B minus. I mean, it's a joke. I mean, I'm doing so well in life and I wasn't a straight A student all the time, you know? Like, we should be able to, like, teach our kids now, like, you don't have to have straight A's. Like you were saying, everybody learns differently. And now we have so many different types of schools now, which is good. Like, I completely forgot about the Montessori school. That fits really well for some kids too. It just depends on the child. So I just love that we have more options, and hopefully in the future we just continue to have more options, and hopefully homeschool gets better for kids. Good luck to you, moms and dads out there, because it's
Did also, like, one last thought that I was thinking about when you're talking about the different options. This was also wild to me too, that the standardized testings, if the school tests low enough on the standardized testing, that it's
yeah.
turned into a charter school, and charter schools are for profit. Is like so it's very deep. It's very deep what's going on. I think that the point is just start to think about things and question things and come to a conclusion on your own what is best for your family. Stop worrying about what society tells us is right for you, and like follow your intuition, follow your gut. If something isn't right to you, we say this all the time, it's not right. So next week, we're going to leave the school cafeteria and go straight to the grocery store because the food system doesn't stop messing with us when we turn 18. It gets more sophisticated. So we'll see you next week. This has been fun. Bless your heart for tuning in. Let us know what names that you think that we should have for our fans. We've been floating some, but right now it's just the Bless Your Heart fan club, and y'all are so much cooler than that.
Yes, yes. Help us find a fun name. Until next time, have a good week.